Imagine you are playing Monopoly with your friends. You find a secret glitch in the rules that lets you call the real toy factory. You order thousands of official, identical bills to be sent straight to your house. You become the richest player, but nobody knows why. This mind-blowing event actually happened in real life. In 1924, a 25-year-old dropout named Alves Reis did not rob a bank. Instead, he tricked a major security printer into making millions in real official currency just for him. It was the perfect crime because the money wasn't fake. Every single bill was printed directly from the government's official plates. He used the exact same ink and watermarks as the National Treasury. With this infinite money glitch, he bought palaces and luxury cars. He even bought his own private bank and accidentally triggered a massive economic boom across his entire country, completely by accident. But injecting hundreds of millions of unauthorized bills into a fragile economy starts a countdown. This is the story of Alves Reis. The story starts in a hot, humid colony in southwestern Africa. Alves Reis was an ordinary dropout who possessed an extraordinary talent. He didn't just copy names, he could replicate entire bureaucratic systems, forging official government contracts and high-level signatures so perfectly that even top international lawyers couldn't spot the lie. While working in Angola in 1916, he executed his first major test. He forged an engineering diploma from Oxford University. This was a school he had never even visited. He submitted the fake Oxford document to the local colonial railway administrators. The trick worked perfectly. It landed him an elite, high-level position inspecting the colony's transit infrastructure. But Reis wasn't interested in fixing train tracks. He wanted real wealth. In 1922, he voluntarily walked away from the elite engineering job he had used a fake Oxford document to get. He had a much bigger target in mind. He formed his own trading company and went after the colony's entire railway system. He used a brilliant financial trick to buy the entire railway company, writing a massive check with zero money in his account, taking control of the business, and then using the company's own treasury to pay off his own check. He embezzled over $100,000 from the Ambaka Railway Company. Then, he used those stolen funds to buy the firm. The Ambaka Railway's financial records became completely unbalanced as Reis moved massive amounts of corporate cash to cover personal debts. His financial maneuvers left a clear paper trail. Board members discovered that Reis used the company's own government bailout money to purchase his shares. In mid-1924, colonial auditing authorities uncovered the missing cash balances. Reis was quickly exposed. While back on mainland Portugal, the authorities caught up with him, and he was thrown straight into a Porto jail cell. For most criminals, a prison cell marks the end of the road. For Reis, it was just a quiet place to mastermind his next step. During his short 54 days in prison, he studied the central bank's official regulations with monastic, intense focus. He discovered a massive vulnerability in how the Bank of Portugal managed its currency. Because the bank frequently issued separate batches of money meant only for its overseas colonies, Reis realized he could order a secret, parallel fortune under the guise of an African development loan, and the central bank would never even look for it. The central bank had a massive, unmonitored blind spot. They had no system to track duplicate serial numbers once money hit the streets. They operated on absolute trust, never imagining that someone could use a network of elite international frontmen to trick their official printing factory into running the presses for them. On August 27, 1924, Reis walked out of the Porto jail cell a free man. Armed with a legal technicality and a mind-blowing new plan, he was ready to execute his masterpiece. Reis didn't need sophisticated counterfeiting equipment to carry out his scheme. Instead, he forged the signatures of senior Bank of Portugal officials on fraudulent contracts and relied on authentic notarizations and embassy certifications to make the documents appear genuine. He knew the paperwork didn't have to be flawless, as long as bureaucratic trust, secrecy, and a lack of independent verification did the rest. In 1924, Angola was a struggling Portuguese colony facing a severe economic crisis. Reis used this real-world vulnerability to create a highly plausible cover story about an emergency foreign currency injection. Reis drafted a completely fictional contract describing a secret financial operation for Angola. It claimed that a private syndicate would provide a £1 million development loan. In return, the agreement authorized the printing and circulation of an equivalent value of Portuguese banknotes for use in Angola. To make the arrangement appear authentic, Reis included a strict secrecy clause insisting that the operation remain confidential to protect its sensitive financial nature. Reis exploited the bureaucratic trust systems of the 1920s. He had his forged contract officially notarized by an assistant notary who failed to scrutinize it, then used that genuine notarization to obtain authentic certifications from several foreign embassies. He sent trusted associates to London carrying a forged contract that had been officially notarized and reinforced with genuine diplomatic certifications, making it appear to be a legitimate order from the Bank of Portugal. Their target was Waterloo & Sons, the London security printing firm contracted by the Bank of Portugal to manufacture genuine Portuguese banknotes. The combination of real official seals, forged signatures and convincing paperwork persuaded Waterloo & Sons in London that they were fulfilling a legitimate order from the Bank of Portugal. Because Waterloo & Sons was already contracted to print Portuguese banknotes, it possessed the genuine plates and printing materials needed to produce authentic currency. The presses began running using the genuine printing plates, authentic watermark security paper, and Waterloo & Sons standard security printing process to produce legitimate Portuguese banknotes. When Waterloo & Sons asked how to handle the serial numbers, Reis's representatives instructed them to reuse serial numbers from an existing issue. This produced genuine banknotes that duplicated the serial numbers of notes already in circulation. By early 1925, Reis and his associates had received 200,000 genuine 500 escudo banknotes, which were discreetly transported in ordinary suitcases and luggage. The newly printed banknotes were discreetly transported into Portugal by Reis and his associates, avoiding attention as they gradually entered circulation. Reis had taken possession of 200,000 genuine 500 escudo banknotes with a total face value of 100 million escudos, an extraordinary sum equal to roughly 1% of Portugal's entire money supply. Reis now faced the problem every large-scale financial fraudster eventually confronts. Possessing the money was one thing, spending it without attracting attention was another. To move his massive cash supply legally, Reis bypassed ordinary retail stores. He decided to act like a wealthy financier. He officially founded a new financial institution called the Banco de Angola e Metrópole, using it as a legitimate-looking bank through which he could gradually introduce the banknotes into circulation. Through his new bank, Reis began investing aggressively across Portugal. He acquired real estate, purchased stakes in businesses, and extended loans, allowing the banknotes to enter circulation through seemingly legitimate financial activity. The sudden influx of money briefly stimulated parts of Portugal's economy. Credit became easier to obtain, investments increased, and businesses benefited from the temporary surge in liquidity. The Bank of Portugal noticed the growing flow of money through the economy, but had no idea that genuine banknotes were entering circulation through a secret, unauthorized operation. But Reis knew his scheme carried a hidden time bomb. Every banknote he put into circulation shared a serial number with another genuine note. Sooner or later, someone was bound to notice. Reis then made his boldest move yet. Using the fortune generated by the fraud, he quietly accumulated shares in the Bank of Portugal, hoping to gain influence over the very institution he had deceived. By late 1925, Reis had quietly acquired more than 9,000 shares in the Bank of Portugal, bringing him closer to gaining significant influence over the very institution he had deceived. But then O Século, one of Portugal's leading newspapers, began investigating the mysterious rise of Reis's financial empire. Their reporting would unravel one of the greatest banking frauds in history. Reporters couldn't explain how a newly established bank was extending generous credit and offering unusually favourable terms without any visible source of wealth. Something didn't add up. On December 5, 1925, O Século published a bombshell exposé that brought the scandal into the public eye, intensifying an investigation the Bank of Portugal had already begun. The public reacted with shock and anger. A single conman had secretly injected 100 million escudos into Portugal's financial system using genuine banknotes printed by the Bank of Portugal's own authorised printer. The scandal shattered confidence in Portugal's financial system and exposed embarrassing failures at the country's most trusted institutions. But even before the bombshell article appeared, investigators in Porto had uncovered the evidence that would expose the fraud. Suspicious banking activity prompted the Bank of Portugal to launch an investigation. As officials manually examined hundreds of 500 escudo banknotes, they made a stunning discovery. The plates, ink, and security paper were all genuine, but the investigators struck gold when they found two genuine 500 escudo banknotes carrying the exact same serial number. As the scandal erupted, Alves Reis wasn't even on mainland Portugal. He was aboard the steamship Amboim, returning from Angola. While at sea aboard the Amboim, Reis received a wireless telegram from an accomplice warning him that his scheme had been uncovered. Despite receiving the news, Reis continued to Portugal instead of fleeing. He appeared confident that the elaborate web of contracts, notarizations, and official seals would protect him. After returning to Lisbon aboard the Amboim, Reis was arrested by Portuguese authorities as the investigation closed in. With Reis arrested, the conspiracy began to collapse. Several of his associates fled or went into hiding as authorities across Europe pursued the remaining members of his network. As news of the scandal spread in Lisbon, anxious crowds gathered outside banks, fearing that the disputed 500 escudo notes in their pockets might soon become worthless. The crisis shook Portugal to its core, fueling political instability and further undermining an already fragile government. While awaiting trial, Reis refused to admit guilt. He maintained that the banknote operation had been legitimately authorized and prepared to defend that claim in court. Reis continued to insist that the operation had been officially authorized and that he was being unfairly blamed. His defense contributed to the complexity of a case that took years to bring to trial. The case was so complex that the investigation and legal proceedings took nearly 5 years before Reis finally went on trial in 1930. By 1930, Reis's defense had failed and the court rejected his claim that the banknote operation had been legitimately authorized. Reis was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison, bringing one of the most extraordinary financial frauds in Portuguese history to an end. While serving his prison sentence, Reis underwent a profound religious transformation. He converted to Protestantism and became an active evangelist among his fellow inmates. When Reis walked free in May 1945, the man who had once shaken Portugal's financial system was left to start over with little of the fortune he had once controlled. Reis tried to rebuild his life, but he never regained the wealth or influence he had once enjoyed. He died in Lisbon in 1955, leaving behind one of the most extraordinary financial frauds in modern history. But his massive 1925 banknote fraud altered Portuguese history. By flooding the economy with genuine banknotes that duplicated existing serial numbers, Reis severely damaged public confidence in the Bank of Portugal and the country's financial system. It became one of the major factors contributing to the 1926 military coup that ended the First Portuguese Republic and opened the door for António de Oliveira Salazar's rise to power. By 1933, Salazar had established the Estado Novo dictatorship, which would rule Portugal for more than 4 decades.